Hello, friends. Okay, today we're going to dig into the E major scale, diatonic chord progression, which means the chords of the E major scale. And we're going to master that and show you the basic chord progressions that are possible within that. So let's go to Music Maestro. Yay! Just to remind you that building the major scale, you take the first note, we're going to call it Do. I don't care if it's E, G, F, A flat. That's our movable Do. Do, whole step, half step, just like in C major. You see it, Do, whole step, half, E and F is a half step. Whole step, and then a half step between 7 and 8. Same thing in E major. Let's go to E major, Do, whole step, half, whole step, half. Just to remind you, make sure you've mastered that. And here we go. Once again, E major. Whole step, half. Whole step, half. Once again. Don't forget, a whole step is 2 half steps. That's not it. That doesn't sound like a major scale. We need a half step between 3 and 4. Mistakes are good in music. Good. That's the 4th step. Now 3 more whole steps. So there's our E major scale. For pianists, we want to use thumb, 2nd finger reaching up, 3rd finger, thumb under. Now we open the hand and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Each finger has a number. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are your fingerings for most of the major scales. 1, 2, 3. Thumb under. Wrist moves out. Elbow moves out slightly. Open all the fingers. E major. Great. If you remember, we've got 2 black notes here and 2 black notes here. We're calling this one a D sharp, not E flat. Let's call this a G sharp. It's just an issue with Music Maestro, but we'll just call all the black notes sharps. F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E. The reason is we don't want to have 2 notes with the same letter. We want this to be D something, E something. So E something, F something, G something, G sharp, A, not A flat A, but G sharp A, B, C, D sharp, E. Great. Okay, so this sets the stage for our diatonic chord progression. This is our E major scale. These are our tools. We've got F sharp, G sharp, C sharp, and D sharp. 4 sharps, 4 o'clock, on the cycle of fifths. E major. By the way, its relative minor. Its relative minor would be the 6th scale degree, which is C sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp. C sharp is the 6th scale degree in E, and that 6th scale degree will always be your relative minor. So our relative minor is C sharp minor. Starts getting a little funky here. 4 sharps. The same black notes as in E major will be C sharp minor. 4 sharps, 4 o'clock is shared by E and C sharp minor. So let's go to C sharp minor for a moment. Let's pop up the octave so you can see the C sharp scale. Now we can count whole steps and half steps in minor. I don't do that. Just to know that between the 2nd and 3rd scale degree, you have a half step for minor. Whole step, and then half step, whole step. So you could think of it like this. The 2nd scale degree is major 2nd, minor 3rd, perfect 4th, perfect 5th, minor 6th, minor 7th, octave. So from the top, I think of whole step, half. This is the whole step. Those also are whole steps from 5, 4, 3, half step between 2 and 3. Well, don't forget, this is a D sharp. C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp. That's the Hebrew national anthem. As a cantor, I've sung that for many, many years. You have E major, C sharp minor. They're a pair of keys. Once again, you're on the 4th notch on the cycle of fifths. Now we dig into the chords of E major. And by the way, the 6th chord of E major will be C sharp minor. All right, so let's build the chords of E major. We'll do 4. So we're building a major chord, 4 half steps and 3 half steps. 4 half steps. We hold those 2 notes down, E and G sharp. 3 more half steps is the E major chord. Now we're going to build the next chord, the 2 chord, on the 2nd scale degree on F sharp. So it's we're going to build a chord on F sharp. Now the 2 chord, if you remember, is minor. So we need 3. And it's also part of the scale. We know that E, that F sharp, that some sort of F, some sort of G, some sort of A. It's got to be an A natural because A is natural in the key of E. Okay, so that's also a way to confirm that A is correct. And our ears. 3 and 4 is a minor chord. Eventually you will learn that this is an F sharp minor chord. Or F sharp minor 7. Or even a minor major. It's a little advanced, but we'll just put that in your head for later. It's a really nice chord. Once again, 1 chord, 2 chord, 3rd scale degree of the scale, G sharp, minor. 3 chord is always minor. 3, 4 half steps. 3 and 4 makes up a minor chord. 3 half steps and 4 half steps. So we'll start with E major, F sharp minor, G sharp minor, and now we need an A chord. 4 and 3 for major. 4 chord is major. Counting half steps. This is our starting point. We count 1, 2, 3, 4. 3 more. Once again, let's review. These are the chords of the E major scale. Major, minor, minor, major. Just like in Lean on Me. Okay, so here we are. Okay, so we've got chords of the E major scale. And the chords will always be major, minor, minor, major, tetrachord number 1. E, F sharp minor, G sharp minor, A major. That's the 4 chord or the subdominant. The 4 chord is the subdominant. That's the A chord, okay, because it's the 4th scale degree of E. A major, E major, A major. Okay, now we're coming to the 5 chord, which is called the dominant, if you remember. Okay, so we've got the first tetrachord, major, minor, minor, major, and now the second tetrachord has another major, minor, sort of minor, diminished actually, and then the 1 chord is the 8 chord, back to E. So we have 5 chord, B is dominant in E, the B major chord. The 6th chord, as you know, is C sharp minor, correct? C sharp minor. D sharp, we need a half step always between the 7th scale degree and the root, the name of the scale, E. So we always need a half step at the end. Remember, there's a half step between 7 and 8. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, ti, do, ti, do, da, 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 like Jaws. It's a half step. Okay, so we need D sharp to E. So that would be a D sharp, not minor, major, minor, diminished major. So B, dominant, is the 5 chord. The 5 chord is always dominant. C sharp minor is the 6 chord, always minor, and that's going to be our relative minor key. And then our 7 chord is our last kid to be called to the baseball field. D sharp diminish, D sharp, F sharp, A. Diminished chords sometimes are known for their 7th chord or their 4-note position. So it'd be D sharp, F sharp, A, C. Let's take a look. Now, a diminished chord is 3 half steps. Another 3, and then another 3. It's called a symmetrical chord. Symmetrical chord. In the olden times, that would be a scary part of a movie. And something weird happened. Those are the old days when they just started making films. They would do like, the bad guy is coming in, the monster enters. There is actually precedent for that. The diminished chord is based on the tritone, which in the Middle Ages was called the devil's interval, and composers who wrote the tritone in their music would be hung. Take a look at the Christians in the 1300s. So that is an interesting fact about the diminished chord, and the reason is, why would they kill you or hang you for writing a diminished chord? Today, jazz is all full of double diminished chords, 2 tritones. A double diminished chord is actually something else. That's interesting. Let's just go to that for a quick second since I made that little mistake. A double diminished is like, you take 2 diminished chords and play them opposite. So where were we? D diminished, diminished 7th, and back to E. So let's take a look at the 5 chord, 6 chord, and 7 chord back to the octave in E, and let's finish up E, at least for the triads, 3-note chords. So here we are. We did 1 chord, 2 chord, 3 chord, 4 chord. Now, 5 chord, we have 4 half steps, 3. And then C sharp minor. So we have 5, 6, and then the 7 chord. And the 8 is the same as 1. 8 is just a repeat of 1. And if you remember your microcosm, your little world of notes, your E major scale, repeat itself over and over again. Like in the orchestra, you'll see, especially talking about E, because strings are all E instruments. The lowest note on those strings are an E. If you remember, if you ever played a violin, that low note is an E. But E is definitely one. E is very much a strings key, because strings love to play in sharps, and the woodwinds and brass like to play in flats. So that's a little bit of a tuning issue. That's why you hear everybody tuning up their instruments at the beginning of the orchestra. They have to be in tune. Okay, so since you've been so patient, I think we're going to just dive in a little bit in E to 4-note chords. It's all based on the scale. So if you have 2 sharps and 2 sharps, F sharp, G sharp, C sharp, D sharp, those 4 sharps are part of our E major scale. We're going to build 7th chords, 4-note chords. We're just going to like leap from E, F, G, A, B, and then we're going to go C, D. So what kind of D do we have in E major? D sharp. So we get this E major 7th chord. Let's take a look at our E major 7th chord. Beautiful chord. Let's move on to the F, sharp minor. And we have an E in E major, F sharp. So it's a major seventh, which is different from a dominant seventh. It's not a dominant seventh, it's a major seventh. The major seventh is referring to this major. This is just a major chord, but don't confuse that. It's just a major seventh, dominant seventh. So we have naturally occurring in the key of E, major seventh. But an E seventh would not be naturally occurring in the key of E, which is strange. The dominant chord in E is your B chord. There you're going to get the dominant seventh, not the major seventh, because A sharp or B flat is not in the key of E. It's the tritone. It's not in the key. That's an avoid note. Okay, so let's go back. Major seventh chord. Now, by the way, this has a beautiful mellow quality because it has a minor chord in it and a major chord superimposed. 2 chord is minor seventh. 3 chord is also a minor seventh. 2 minor sevenths in a row. You can build like a nice little song, like a vibe. Do-do-do-da-do, do-do-do. Let's go back to the screen and have some fun with that. Don't steal it. So music theory leads to composition. Alrighty then. Getting back to our 4-note chords in the diatonic chord progression in E major. So we've got 1. It's a major seventh chord. Beautiful chord. 2 minor seventh. 3 minor seventh. The 4 chord is because G is sharp in the key of E. We're going to have the 4 chord, which is also this major seventh. So we've got 2 major sevenths. Also a compositional idea for us. Now we go to the 5 chord. We already told you it's a dominant seventh. Now, don't forget, we have 4 and 3. And to get a dominant seventh, we just need 3 more. You got this little diminished chord as part of your dominant seventh chord. Interesting. C sharp minor. Seventh, because B is part of the scale of E. Now we have a diminished, but we don't have a fully diminished chord. We have what we call a half diminished chord built on the 7th scale degree. Let's talk about that. Okay, so the half diminished chord, the first 2 intervals or the first 3 notes, you have minor third, minor third. But the next leap is going to be a major third, 4 half steps. Okay? So it's 3 half steps, 3 half steps, and 4 half steps for a half diminished chord. A half diminished chord is also called or notated as minor 7, flat 5. Minor 7, flat 5. Okay? It's also noted in jazz as a little circle with a slash through it. If you've ever seen that symbol, little circle and a slash, that's called a half diminished chord. Half diminished. And it's used quite often. I use it a lot in my arranging, especially with a lot of minor music and Israeli music and Jewish music. So half diminished chord, naturally occurring as your chord, 4-note chord, built on the 7th scale degree of any major scale, of any major scale. So if we're talking D major, your 7th scale degree would be C sharp, and you would have a C sharp half diminished chord. So if we're in D major, we would go to C sharp, 4, There's our half diminished. We have a minor chord in there, don't we? It would be very confusing to think of, hey, I've got a minor chord, and then I'm going to add a minor third below that. Music is complicated enough. I don't want to guide you in the wrong way and start thinking I'm going to find an E minor chord. If we go to our key, let's go back to E major just so we can be clear. And here we are. So we do have an F sharp minor chord up here. That's what maybe gives it that lilt. Interestingly enough, if we invert this half diminished chord, we take this note, we put it on top, we get an F sharp minor sixth. It's a nice chord. It's like an F sharp minor with a color on it. Now, by the way, our friend Wagner wrote the Tristan chord in the opera Tristan and Isolde. That first chord is a half diminished chord, and we could look into how he orchestrates that.